thank you all for coming here tonight and for joining us for this inspirational talk with KickStarter. I'm Yolanda. I work in the Alumni Relations Office here at FIT, and it's always exciting to learn about the amazing work that alumni go on to do and how new technologies play a huge role in making their dreams a reality. Tonight we will hear from three very talented alums who launched successful Kickstarter campaigns for their creative projects. Amy Lombard, Heather Huey, Stefan Loble, and I'd also like to welcome Sass Brown, who's the Assistant Dean of FIT School of Art and Design, and Nicole He, who's the Art, Fashion, and Photography Project Specialist at Kickstarter. Nicole will start us off this evening by presenting helpful tips that can bring your project to life. Please join me in welcoming all of our panelists.
Thanks, Yolanda. So, hello everyone. I'm Nicole He. As Yolanda said, I'm the Art, Fashion, and Photography Project Specialist at Kickstarter. So today, I'm just going to talk about what Kickstarter is, what we do, and how you can use it to fund your creative projects. So, just a little bit about Kickstarter as a company. We were founded in 2009, so we're a little over 4 years old now. I think we have like 60 or actually even 70 now employees, and half of us work with the community, and half of us work on building the website. Right now we're based in a tenement building in the Lower East Side, but we're moving to a new office soon in Greenpoint. So what is Kickstarter? Kickstarter is a funding platform for creative projects. So these two words, creative and projects, are both really important to us. What is a Kickstarter project? So this word projects, what do we mean by that? What we mean is that it's something specific and finite. It has a clear beginning and end. So it's something that you can say, look, I did this, it's over, like, hooray. And it has to fit into one of our categories, and this is where the word creative comes in. We define creative as something that fits into one of Kickstarter's 13 categories, which range from art to music to comics, games, fashion, film, things kind of like in that world. So on Kickstarter, you have to offer rewards when you're a project creator. So basically, when people support you, you have to offer them something in exchange, and I'll get into more detail about that in a bit. But kind of our last rule is that there's no charitable or cause-based funding. We're really focused on making something, and we're really focused on things, again, in this like creative world. So one trick for why Kickstarter works is the all or nothing model. So what this means is that if you don't raise the amount of money that you set out to raise in the time frame that you picked, you don't get any money. So for this project, this Farrell & Co. handmade leather goods project, you can see here that they have 7 days to go, and they've raised about $8,500 out of their $8,900 goal. And so if for some reason in the last week of this project no one else pledged to it and they didn't raise any more money, they wouldn't get any of the money at all, and nobody would be charged, and everybody would just walk away from this project. Actually, I haven't checked, but I'm pretty sure this project actually funded today. If not, they're like $30 short, and they definitely will fund. And we see that when projects get this close, or actually not anywhere, like not even near as close as this, they are almost always successful. So why do we do the all or nothing model? The short answer is that it just works. So basically, it's less risk for everyone because, say, I need to raise $6,000 to do my solo ukulele EP, but I only raised $3,000. If we didn't have the all or nothing model, and I did take home that $3,000, the people that pledged to my project would still expect me to be able to fulfill. But since I only raised half the money that I set out, I said that I needed, I probably wouldn't be able to make such, like a really awesome ukulele EP. It probably wouldn't be that good if I could finish it at all. So that's why the all or nothing model is really powerful, because, it's also really, it encourages participation and is really compelling. If People are much more motivated to support your project if they know that the $15 they're going to chip in is actually going to make a difference with whether or not you can fulfill your dream. It's a really good motivating factor. So one thing that's really interesting is that we see that the tipping point for successful projects is actually at 30%. So what this means is that if I'm trying to raise $1,000 and I've raised $300, 90% of the time I'm going to be successful. Actually, even a project that raises just 10% of its goal at any point during its campaign, 75% of the time they're successful. So this really shows you that you have to have this core audience. If you do have this audience of just, not even that many people, but even that 10% up to that 30% that can, help you get there, you already have a really good shot of making it. It also really shows you that it's not just about having a good idea, but it's also about really motivating your audience to help you bring this idea to life. You can't just put it up on Kickstarter and not tell anybody about it and expect free money to fall out of the sky. That's not really how it works. Some stats. Kickstarter is at this point is pretty big. It's a really big creative ecosystem. So I think currently there's been about $730 million pledged to creative projects on Kickstarter. And there have been 4.5 million backers. So those are people who have taken out their wallets and given money to support creative projects. There's one statistic that we pay a lot of attention to, which is actually that repeat backer stat, which is at 1.28 million right now. So that means a repeat backer is somebody who has supported more than one project on Kickstarter. And we think it's interesting because I think most people come to Kickstarter when their friend, their classmate, their coworker, or somebody that they know is doing a project. But then they kind of, poke around on the site and they see things that are kind of interesting or inspiring to them, and then they support another project, and they might be supporting someone that they've never met, never will meet, but they get inspired. So we think that's a really cool growing statistic to watch out for. And there have been 46,000 successful projects to date. The success rate is 44%, which I think is pretty good. So something that's interesting is that actually a quarter of projects that are not successful don't get one single pledge. So that is a person who put up a project on Kickstarter and just told nobody about it. And again, you really have to tell people about your project. You have to get the word out. That's a big part of the job. And we do charge a fee for our services. So we take 5% of successful projects, but only if they're successful. So if you don't reach your goal, you don't get any money, so we're not going to take any money. Amazon Payments also charges 3 to 5% on top of that for processing credit cards and stuff. So this is something to keep in mind if you are, setting a goal for a Kickstarter project, is the 8 to 10% of fees that's going to be on top of that. But people that are successful usually are overfunded by at least 110%, so it kind of balances out. So again, that creative ecosystem I was talking about, there are a lot of things happening on Kickstarter. Right now, games and film are in the lead, tied up for the amount of money they've raised. I guess it maybe makes sense if you think about it, films obviously cost a lot of money, video games. There's also design, music, technology, publishing, art. And if you look at the categories by how many projects have launched, film is up there again, but there's also publishing and theater, games, and that sort. The fashion category, I think, is really interesting. It's one of our burgeoning categories, but it's not particularly small either. There have been 200,000 people who have supported fashion projects on Kickstarter, and there's been almost $19 million pledged to less than 4,000 projects in fashion, and it's growing, which I think is pretty cool. Usually when you hear about Kickstarter projects in the news, you hear about the big blockbusters like Veronica Mars or Zach Braff or Patrick Robinson, Amanda Palmer. But in reality, if you look at the numbers for, the scope of the average successful project, it's probably a lot less intimidating. You can see the average goal is just $7,500, and the average amount of money raised for successful projects is a bit less than twice that. But interestingly, for the fashion category, the average goal is a little less, but fashion projects tend to raise more money than your average successful project on Kickstarter. So why does Kickstarter work? One reason is that every Kickstarter is a story. There's a narrative featuring a person doing something that they really care about. And the most visual way to tell a story on Kickstarter is with your project video. We are a very video-driven site. Having a video on your project isn't a requirement, but we really, really, really recommend it because people really want to connect with a human face. And these videos are kind of they're pretty simple. They're usually kind of like, hi, I'm Nicole. This is the thing that I'm doing. This is why I care about it. Thank you so much for your support. And they come in different forms, but they're usually kind of like that. They don't have to be super fancy or slick, but they also could be. As long as you kind of get yourself out there and you tell people what you're doing and, who you are. If you're kind of show yourself authentically, that usually works out, even if it's like you feel awkward or like silly or weird. That's usually okay. So we've put together kind of a montage of video clips that will show you what your typical Kickstarter video looks like. Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
What's up, people?
Hi.
Hey.
Hello. I thought we were going to do hello.
Hi.
I love your new shoes. Are those new shoes?
Hi, my name is Raquel.
And I could go on, but this is a Kickstarter campaign video, and I haven't even told you what my project is yet. So the idea is this.
I'm writing a book. A feature film.
Stop-motion animation.
Sci-fi music video album.
People actually be able to buy the tour dress that they themselves designed.
I want to make a new graphic novel, and I want you to get some original art.
This time I decided to write things that were more lyrical.
I hope to make something strange and unique for you to enjoy.
I made a film called Codependent Lesbian Space Alien Seek Same.
Right now, I'm sitting on over 200 hours of incredible footage.
I'd like your help to complete it.
Cut out all that extraneous stuff, all those extraneous costs, and get to the point, which is simply more art in front of more people.
The last piece of the puzzle is going to be you. We cannot do this without you. We can't.
We need you to be a part of this. This is a collaborative experience.
If you back this Kickstarter project, you will be cool and everybody will like you.
I want to make a show that you don't just watch. Something unpredictable, strange, and maybe even amazing. So let's do this thing.
I'm really excited for this. I think that this is worth doing.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching our Kickstarter.
Let's go make a story.
We can make it together.
So as you can see from that, there are a lot of faces, a lot of stories and personality, and not all of those clips are like expensive or fancy, but they all really show you who these people are and kind of tell you the story of why they're doing this thing that they care so much about. So another way to tell your story on Kickstarter is with project rewards. So Kickstarter is not just a donation platform. So if I give you $10, I get $10 of something in return, and it's up to you to kind of define what that is. Rewards are really a great opportunity to invite people into the process and the journey of your project. So if I'm writing a book, you get a copy of the book, or I name a character after you. A lot of times in comics projects, you could be, if you pledge to it, you could be drawn in as like the villain character or something. If, in fashion, if I'm producing a new line of like women's wear designed for biking, you can get the rain cape, for example. It's important to think about this as not just swag. You really want to be creative and interactive when you think about what rewards you're going to offer. You should ask yourself, what would you want to bag. So one of my favorite rewards from a small project personally is there's this lady somewhere in the Midwest, I think, her name is Becky, and she makes like hand-dyed artisanal yarn. And I'm a knitter, so I backed for a skein of yarn. And the cool thing about it, though, is that after you backed it, she asked you for a color or a phrase, a word, an idea, a dream, like a painting, whatever, like anything, and she would use that as inspiration to like choose the colors of how she dyed your yarn. So I asked her to make me something that was inspired by Van Gogh's sunflowers, and one day I got this in the mail, and it's really cool. So it's really cool to have these projects that feel really interactive and really personal, and like somebody out there made this for me. So looking at the stats for project rewards, $25 is the most common pledge. So that is the level at which people seem to be most willing to part with their hard-earned cash to support your project. And that's something that you should think about when you're designing your rewards. Usually, probably for fashion projects, $25 probably isn't going to get you the actual thing. Like if I'm making a line of like silk dresses, it's probably not going to be $25, but you should still think about something that you can offer at that level, because something cool, because like people really, really pledge at that level. So even if it's something like a friendship bracelet, like a pocket square bow tie, or something small, and like tangible or cool, that's really important. $100 is the tier that generates the most money. So there might be a smaller number of people that pledge at $100 compared to $25, but a lot of the times the bulk of your funds actually come in at that tier. So that's another important one to think about. It's pretty amazing to think that, like, out of the $730 million raised on Kickstarter, most of it has come in $25 increments. So again, you really want to think hard about what rewards you offer. Sometimes you see like, oh, $50, I will give you a shout out on Facebook. And like, maybe your mom will pledge at that level, but like, for the most part, you want to offer something that your friends would want, or you yourself would want if you were supporting a different project. So the good thing for fashion projects is that it's pretty much a given that you should be offering the thing that you are actually making. So, if you're doing a line of handbags, then you should offer the bag. If you're doing like jeans, then you should offer the jeans. So, this is an example. This is a project called Atheist Shoes. They make these really nice, like artisan leather shoes. And I actually have a pair, and they're actually like the most comfortable shoes I've ever owned. But this is the reward tier, basically. Their main reward tier, $180 for a pair of shoes. 261 people backed it, and they were the first people in the world to get to wear these shoes. And actually, this project ran like a year and a half ago. They're based in Berlin, and now they've had a lot of success since then. Last week, they had a pop-up shop in Chelsea Market, which was pretty cool. So another type of reward to think about is kind of an experiential reward. So people, something that you could offer as an experience. So people really actually love kind of like inside scoops or like behind the scenes things. So for this project, for $1,000, you can visit their studio, help them with, their design and for their next collection, and you get credited. People actually really love this kind of stuff. So, that's something to think about too, is like what kind of experience can you offer backers? So, another way to tell your story is with project updates. You don't just put your Kickstarter up and, like let it go forever and never interact with it again. You have to remember that your backers are your number one fans. And project updates really allow you to engage with your community. And if somebody pledges just $1 to your project, they get subscribed to your updates. They find out if you make the goal or not. So, it's important to think about these things. So updates live on our site, but they also get sent to your backers' email inboxes. And, they're a really great place to kind of let your backers know, like, the status of your work, how things are going, or give them, like, thanks and, special gifts and surprises and things. So this, for example, is from a project from a band called Black Moth Super Rainbow. They're doing a new album. And this update is just kind of like, thank you. Now we have a release date and, like, thanks to all your support. Like, we want to give you a sneak peek of this track. So these types of things are really great to show your backers, like, during your campaign, but also afterwards. And people love updates even if things aren't going well. Actually, those are the times where you should be updating the most. The creative process isn't necessarily linear, as I'm sure everybody knows. And so, if things aren't going well, you want to tell your backers. Like, people love them even if, all the update says is like, all I did today was bang my head on the desk, like, trying to figure out the zippers or something. If you keep people in the loop of what's going on, they're very forgiving. So, with video, rewards, and updates, it's important to remember that above all, the story you tell should be yours. So you should really make it personal and talk about yourself. I keep using this word backers. What does that mean? So backers are the people who support your project. They give you $1, $5, $100, or $5,000. They're the ones that are going to be writing into you. They're the ones that love what you're working on. They care about you. And I have personally, this is maybe embarrassing, I have backed over 200 projects, which is a lot. I mean, sometimes only for $1, like not like a high roller. But it's like, it's fun to be a backer and kind of get to live through the stories of all of these projects and see all the cool things that people are doing in the world. So it's important to figure out who these people are going to be and how you're going to reach them. The majority of your backers are probably going to be people that you already know, the people that are in your own network. So your email list, your Facebook friends, your Twitter followers, your family, your neighbors, whatever. And if you're concerned that your network might not be big enough to support your Kickstarter project, I think you should think about you're trying to grow your network before you start your campaign. But if you do really well with your kind of original community of people that support you, your project will probably go beyond your network, and you'll get people that you've never met before backing your project. So you really want to think about your backers when you're creating your project. Like, what would they want as a reward? What would appeal to them in a video? things like that. And you want to think about and start talking to these people before you even launch your campaign. So I'm going to go through a case study with a fashion project from a couple years ago. It's called We Flashy, and it's by these two grad students named Alex Vessels and Mindy Chu. So what they wanted to do was create a line of casual like t-shirts and hoodies that were reflective for bikers or like joggers, but were also stylish. So they raised about $10,000, and their goal was $6,500, so it's pretty good. And they had 181 backers. So one thing to know is that when you're creator on Kickstarter, we've made these tools, so you have all these things that can help you kind of track what's going on, and those are all kind of on the back end. So if you see these screenshots here, these are not things that I've like pulled for this presentation. This is like what they see on their back end. So for this, for example, tells you how many videos or how many times the video was watched. This is the activity feed, so it's just like this big stream of comments and updates and pledges and stuff. So let's look at their rewards. So their lowest tier rewards were reflective stickers that can put on your helmet or laptop, and also an invite to their launch party, plus the stickers. So this is a good example of something where, their actual thing that they're trying to make with the project is not going to be $15 or $25, but they're offering something that's really cool at those levels, and they get, a good number of supporters. So $50 is like their thing, the t-shirt, the reflective t-shirt. $110 is reflective hoodie. And their $350 tier, like you get all that stuff mentioned before, but you also get to work with them to create a one-of-a-kind design. So that's a cool thing. I mean, especially for designers to think about. People really love to have those like interactive rewards. So this is a breakdown of their rewards, or how popular each reward tier was. That spike is their $50 t-shirt. So you can see that they're, usually the thing that you're actually making, in this case is those t-shirts, is going to be the most popular. Actually, if you look at the bar on the left, that one is for people that chose to, they didn't want a reward at all. They just wanted to support the project. So, one nice thing about Kickstarter is that it's a kind of a blend of patronage and commerce. So let's look at their funding graph. So theirs is slightly unusual because they have that big spike in the middle. So the way it works is that you pick a time frame, anywhere between 1 and 60 days. And they picked 45, but we usually recommend 30. We see the most success with projects that are around 30 days. You don't want it to be too long because you kind of lose steam and it kind of drags on. So 30 days usually works really well. So typically there's kind of a big launch. I mean, theirs is like sort of, maybe not that typical, but usually there's kind of a bigger launch. You can see it is slightly steeper at the beginning. And then the middle part tends to be pretty quiet. It goes up, but at like smaller increments. That big spike is they had a big press thing in the news. So, that's something that you should think about, is getting the word out about your project before, at the beginning, in the middle, at any time. But it's good that they had that there, which, that whatever the spike was, and then they reached their goal because of it. But it's, they clearly had some momentum beforehand too. So it's nice to show people or tell the press about your project when there's already some money on it. And at the end, there's usually kind of a bigger push. Like the middle part is usually kind of slow, but the end, there's another big push. So make sure you have momentum at the beginning and also at the end. So this graph shows you where the backers come from. So the green part is the backers who came from Kickstarter, like somewhere on Kickstarter, found this project and backed it. The gray part is from external sources. So usually the gray part is the creator like hustling and like sending out links and Facebook, Twitter, like whatever, or Medium. So let's look at their updates. So this is what the update tab looks like. It basically looks like any blog post, but it's multimedia. You can add videos, audio, photo, and we actually really encourage this. So the first update is just like, thank you, we're 40% funded. We still have a ways to go, so we'd love if you could tell your friends who are cyclists or bloggers or like anybody who'd be interested. And they have a picture of their thing. The next update is like here's a new thing that we're offering. Now you can choose to have the flashy part on the back if you want. So update 6 is still, thank you, but they're also like, here's what's going on with our production. It's delayed a little bit, but we're working on it and you'll get your rewards soon. These types of updates are really important to have. Again, you really want to keep your backers in the loop about what's going on, even if it's, even if there are problems or delays, it's really important to let them know. So finally, this is like the update that you are really excited to get as a backer. They're like, finally, everything's ready. We're going to send things out. You're going to get, your stuff in the mail soon. So this is a big part of the Kickstarter process, going through receiving all these updates and kind of following along with the story about what's going on. Like you see the things being made, and it's like a journey for you as well. So this is update 13. It's I think about 6 months or so after their project ended. So this is, finally like this big moment that happens for a lot of successful fashion projects on Kickstarter. The Kickstarter worked out really well. And now they have an online store. So this is a thing that happens a lot. So it works really well because it's like with the Kickstarter project, you had your first production line, you worked out the kinks of whatever, you're figuring things out. So now you're ready to launch your e-commerce site, your pop-up shops, even like brick and mortar stores, and you have a community of people who love what you do already. So, that was it for the case study. So if you're thinking about doing a project, what's the next step? The first thing I would say is definitely take a look around the site. Look at projects that are similar to yours. If you're doing photography, look at the photography category. If you're doing an art exhibit, look at those. If you're doing a handbag collection, look at previous handbag projects, for example. The next thing is, I would really recommend that you back a project because it's really cool to get the perspective, as a backer, and you kind of figure out what works and what's compelling, and you can definitely build that into your own project. And the next thing is to start planning your project, and you should talk to your friends about it, talk to your community about it, as you're building it, don't just keep it a secret and then launch it. You should definitely ask for feedback from the people that are going to be supporting you. So we have this pretty new tool. It's called the preview link. So basically, at any point while you're building your project, you can have this link that you send out to whoever you want, and then they can give you some feedback, and you can get all of that in, figure it all out before you launch. So, that's something that you should definitely do. And then when you're ready, you should launch your project. So that's Kickstarter. And so now I think we're going to hear from 3 former project creators who are also FIT alum. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Amy Lombard, and I graduated last year, and I studied photography and art history here. So it's sort of funny because this project and concept of it actually came out of an assignment that I didn't want to do here. We were looking at a lot of photographers who were staging these elaborate setups like Philip Lorca de Corsia and things like that. And I remember my professor gave me this assignment, and I just thought, I don't want to do it. I'm a documentary photographer, and so I thought, how can I take this idea very literally? And so I went to IKEA and I photographed the rooms, and somewhere along the lines I accidentally photographed someone in one of these rooms. And when I was looking back at the film, when I noticed that, it just sort of was like an epiphany, and I began photographing in IKEA for 1.5 years since. So the photographs are all the people in the rooms. It creates these illusions of reality, and it sort of gives you an idea that they could be almost like family photographs. And the challenge that I had when I was making the work was that it didn't make a lot of sense in a gallery setting or selling the prints or anything like that. So I knew that I wanted to make a book. And so someone approached me and they said they were going to start doing Kickstarter projects and working with artists. And it seemed like a natural fit for me because IKEA is something, you've all probably been to an IKEA at some point in your lives, for better or worse. And you have this really widespread audience. And for me, it worked out really well. I ended up getting this project funded, I think, in about 2 weeks after launching the actual project. But for me, most of the pre-orders came from people actually ordering the book. And it was relatively inexpensive. I think the book was set at like $25 per book. But what I think was really great for me about using Kickstarter was getting that audience there and having a lot of eyes on the project. I have a pretty vast network of different people, whether that be editors or friends who work in the arts who could sort of empathize with me on funding a project. But a lot of the press sort of happened organically. The Huffington Post wrote about it, a few other main media outlets, which ultimately got me quite a few backers. But yeah, all in all, it was a great experience, and I would definitely do it again. And I think the one thing that I would recommend is just make sure that you're getting it out there, whether that's through your friends or through different media outlets, for sure.
Hi, I'm Heather Huey. I actually went here as a continuing ed student and studied millinery back in 03, 04. And actually, my Kickstarter is not really about hats. It's about my body cages, which kind of came about while I was trying to be a working milliner. And it's hard enough making hats, so I don't think it was the most practical move to start making body cages. But I did, and I was talking with a gallery. They wanted to do something with it, something with photographs, but I don't really know what to do. And then I met my boyfriend, Billy Kidd. The Kickstarter's Heather Huey was shot by Billy Kidd, and he wanted to do something with my cages, so we decided to do a show at Click Gallery. And for some reason, he decided we should do a book to go with our exhibit. And the amount of money that we were going to put into it was getting pretty high. So a couple of my acquaintances had done Kickstarters before, and I wasn't that familiar with it. So we went on and did a research, saw that we went through all the guidelines. They recommend doing a video, so we did the video. We did the 30 days. We were warned that it was going to be a full-time job just to raise the money. Like you said, we couldn't just post it and just sit back and just let the money come in. I definitely would not have been able to raise all that money by myself because I'm actually not on any social media sites. But luckily, Billy is on everything. Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, all that stuff. So I think about 25% of our backers were from Facebook and Tumblr. Some of our prizes were also a popular one was $20 for a Tumblr shout out on Billy Kidd's Tumblr, and that was big because he had 20,000 followers. And another popular tier was $75 for the book itself, and $100 for the book signed by both of us. And yeah, we were hustling till the very end. It was scary because the numbers kept changing, and at the very end we made it literally with a minute to spare, and we were shaking. But it was amazing because it was a huge help financially to get the exhibit and the quality of the book that we wanted. And then also we wanted to make sure that our backers knew we appreciated them and to get all the prizes out to them at a timely manner, which was another learning experience with getting the surveys out there and telling them, give us all your information so we can get these the books out to you and everything, and just keeping them updated, just to make sure that they knew that we really are appreciative. And I think that was it. Yeah.
My name is Stefan Loble, and I founded a men's wrinkle-free pant company called Bluffworks on Kickstarter. And as a way of introduction, I'm actually going to show you my Kickstarter video. And this is my Kickstarter project. The other day, I got this voicemail.
Alright, straight up truth. 6:52 a.m. I'm driving to work. For the last 5 minutes, I've been trying to get these wrinkles out of these pants. I iron them, I put them on, and halfway to work, I realized they're still right. That was for 5 minutes. I'm creasing them out with my hands. Anyway.
Why is this guy calling me about pants? Let me explain. When I lived in Asia, it was often hot, raining like mad, so I wore travel clothes, and the technical fabrics made an impression on me. Back in New York, my life picked up the pace. I had to look good, but couldn't stand the energy it took to maintain traditional office apparel. My goal was to recreate a version of what I had in Asia, but that was more appropriate for my life back home. It took me a year to develop a fabric that was comfortable and wrinkle-free, a material that looks great in the office, but underneath is ready for adventure anytime. Once the fabric was in hand, I developed the pattern, refined the fit, and finally, I had my first pair of pants. These pants are the foundation of a new apparel company called Bluffworks. And here's a taste of what they can do. Most days, I pack them in my bag and hit the road. When I arrive, after a quick change in the gym, I pull them out of my bag looking like this. After work, I can wear them to dinner or an errand in the city. But tonight, I'm headed home, where the toughest test begins. If you're getting squashed on a regular basis, you might as well be styled for the occasion. Other days, I run to work. When I arrive, they look great, ready for another day in the office with no care in between. On Saturday, you can find me in a playground. On Sunday, we took a trip out of the city. Somehow I always seem to get wetter than I planned. Thankfully, the pants are super quick dry. What am I supposed to do? Tell the boy not to go in the surf because I can't get my pants wet? Later that night, it's a rare treat that we're out in the city, and I'm there in the same pair of pants. Monday morning finally rolls around, my pants are still ready to go. I've already brought 3,000 yards of my special fabric to a factory in Manhattan's legendary garment district. Your donations will be used specifically for the cost of the initial production order. Naturally, as a reward on Kickstarter, I'm offering a pair of pants. They come in 3 colors, the brown you saw, plus khaki and gray. Since they require less care, they also reduce the amount of water, detergent, and electricity you use on a weekly basis. We're all busy and have important things to do. With my bluffs, I'm never at a loss for something to wear. And you shouldn't be either. Thank you for your support.
Thanks. All right, so you all giggled at me wearing them for a couple days, and it's true that, I don't know, I'm not going to tell you how many days it is, but these pants were probably worn yesterday, maybe the day before, and I biked here in them, right? But, I think we all do it. I mean, men are not dry cleaning their wool trousers every day, nor are women's with their dresses, and dry cleaning and washing is expensive and a hassle, so, I think now you understand the motivation of the product for me. There is a backstory behind this that led me to FIT, and it actually has to do with being miserable in my day job in software. I don't have a background in fashion, and I was so unhappy at work that I got this lease renewal, and when you get the renewal, they multiply the 12 months rent times the monthly times 12, and you get this shocking number, and I kind of freaked out. And this is 3 years ago, and I actually packed up all my stuff and took my wife and kid and moved in with my parents, and we did that for a summer. But during that summer, I attended night classes at FIT, and they were in entrepreneurship. And when I entered, I wasn't necessarily focused on fashion yet. I had a number of different business ideas, and I thought that the curriculum would be handy regardless of what avenue I chose. And being here helped me focus more and more on fashion. Of course, it's something I'm passionate about. So at the end of that summer, we decided, okay, we're going to try and make this work in New York, and New York is a place to do fashion. And we moved into a cheaper apartment, and we stayed, and off we went. But the second break I got was launching the product on Kickstarter. I had originally planned to make 500 pairs in the garment district here, the minimum production order. And I was going to sell them one by one and just try to grow it over time. But I saw a very famous software author named Scott Birkin launch his project on Kickstarter. I'm like, wait a second, if this guy he's a very famous author. He's using Kickstarter. Maybe I should rethink my plans. And I did, and Kickstarter made all the difference to me. I mean, first of all, I had 1,000 customers right off the bat with a production order of 2,000 pairs. The second thing is I got a size and color curve before I even had to go to the factory. The third is, you may have noticed in the video, I said that we offer them in 3 colors, but we actually have 4 colors. And the most popular color, I was too dumb to make a black, right? And my customers... they instantly told me, you should have black pants. And like, we added it, the goods that we had brought to New York were in the 3 colors. We added the 4th color, did all the lab dips during the period of the project, committed to having black. That's why it says now in black, new black color. Added the 4th color. People bumped up their pledge. You know, the first person who said, you should have a reward tier for all 4 pairs. You know, I gave them the 4th pair free. I mean, it was really great. So the project closed, and I think for me, the other thing to mention on Kickstarter is that the vast majority of my customers did not come from within Kickstarter. It was absolutely not friends and family and Facebook networking for me. And that is a very important thing to do in every project. I might just be kind of crummy at it, and I don't have a very good network. But my wife and I were, the night we launched our project, we're on the corner of 100th and Broadway drinking a bottle of champagne out of a paper bag, and we refreshed the iPad, and the 3rd backer I ever got was a guy named Javier. And I turned to my wife and I said, Javier, do you know Javier? She's like, I don't know Javier. Do you know Javier? We're like, oh my God, it was a backer from Mexico, right? And that was the moment that we knew that this might actually have legs. And from there, the project took off, and it was great. We now sell exclusively on bluffworks.com and have lots of great plans for growing the company. And I still have my day job, but this year is really promising, and everything's going great, including doing another Kickstarter project, I hope. And maybe lastly, if I was to offer some tips, the first is I think it's very important to study projects that are in your specific area. So if you march in, you're like, I'm going to raise $50,000. And if you look at some project areas like wallets, actually, you can raise $50,000 in wallets. There have been like a dozen wallets in a row. Some of them have raised $200,000 and some of them raised $50,000, and they're doing well, right? But if you're in fashion or photography or film, it's very important to look at other projects that you think might be similar to yours and think about the metrics. How many backers did they get? What is your main price point, and how many backers do you think you're going to get at that price point to achieve your goal? That's super critical. The second thing that I would suggest is that you should have people look at your project very critically. It's hard when we're so passionate about something to know if we're just brilliant and we've seen something that nobody else has ever figured out, or are we just crazy? And if you can find people that are really unbiased to scrutinize your project, everything from proofreading your draft project to looking at your video to et cetera, that scrutiny is really, really important before you launch it. I think it's really helpful. And then the last thing I think, as everyone mentioned, is get ready, right? Because if your project goes really crumbly, then you're going to have to work all the time at trying to make it go. And if your project goes really well, then you're going to have to work all the time to keep up with it, right? So that's my suggestion.
Hi, I'm Sass Brown. I'm the Assistant Dean for the School of Art and Design, and I'm one of those serial backers of Kickstarter, not nearly to the scale you are, but nevertheless, I've backed quite a few people on Kickstarter, certainly some alumni from fashion design. Also, a lot of people I've never heard of, will never meet, and never know more about other than through their updates. But through film technology and also urban development. I backed something for doing planters on taking billboards and turning them into planters over the motorway. So a jacket that also played music. I remember that one. I think it was called the MIDI jacket. And a couple of films actually. One, Occupy Love, which was shown in New York about 6 months ago, and another one on tribal culture in Africa. So I've backed many other projects. So, and I think for me as a backer, one of the things that's integral, and I know is integral from my own work, is the story. It's the background. It's this getting a piece and a touch of what's of value, what somebody else is doing. And for the price of a couple of, Starbucks coffees, you can actually have an impact on somebody's creation, on somebody's project, on bringing that into the world. And I think that's an incredibly valuable thing. And it's something that I know I have done a lot of times, and I will definitely continue to do so.
So much. We're going to open it up to Q&A. If anybody has any questions.
did you have a moment where someone on social media gave you a shout out? A big bump.
I mean, for me, I had a lot of people who were writing about it, but, and that, like I said, the Huffington Post, I got a decent amount of backers from that, but the majority were people who were friends and things like that, but no specific moment for me. I don't know about you guys.
No, I'm not on social media, but maybe Billy might be able to answer that.
I mean, as I mentioned, I'm not very good at social media, but since the campaign, when I do get blog posts and stuff, my sales kind of rocket for those couple of days, and that's been tremendous. And I know that other people, when they're running Kickstarter campaigns, they credit their success to that. That the social media, the push, the doing PR press releases and all that kind of stuff, most people would credit, but that's the way that they were able to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, I think any exposure is crucial.
And I would say as a backer, almost everything I've backed is because it's come to my attention. Somebody's sent me a newsletter, somebody's done a post on a social network that I subscribe to. It's not that I've gone to Kickstarter and trawled through the programs that I think might be interesting. It's because something's come to my inbox and come to my attention.
I'll take that.
What was your goal, and what did you end up raising?
The goal was $13,500, which was like roughly a $20 per pair sewing cost times 500 pairs made in New York, right? So that's like $10,000 plus a Kickstarter fee, etc. We got to $13,500, and I raised $128,000. Thank you. Ooh, that's a great question. Actually, so the textile is not proprietary in the sense that I have a patent, right? I mean, there's so many amazing technologies out there that the consultant that I found through FIT, we did a fabric search all over the world. Okay, the fabric is 100% polyester. It is not treated to make it like with formaldehyde and all the things that you find in cottons to make them wrinkle-free. It's actually wrinkle-free due to the nature of the weave, and they're really cool and light. They're not. Everybody who's like over like 60 is always like, oh, polyester from the 70s, do you sweat? And, you know, this is new polyester, right? So it's not very hot or any that kind of stuff.
I think you would just have to hustle more. It was a relief to have a partner to help hustle, because he was doing it like Facebook and Tumblr. He was just getting so many people excited because he already had a huge following. It was harder for me. I mean, I was email blasting everyone I knew, just trying to like nag them to death. Yeah, I think I just probably would have tried to work harder. And force myself to try and do that. I mean, I did actually end up joining Tumblr because of the Kickstarter thing, but that's the most I will do. Yes, but you have to be careful. Like, I didn't want to alienate people and be like, I dread her emails. But if someone is a supporter of your work and they say that they want to, then you just have to keep reminding them in case they forget or they're waiting to get enough money to pledge something. So I did feel a little bit aggressive, but I feel like in some ways you kind of have to be, as long as you're not too mean about it, I guess.
Yeah, there's a fine line between really getting your project out there and spamming. And, it's something to be conscious of. In general, I think, I wouldn't tweet at every celebrity that I know, or like in general, you don't want to spam people that you like have zero connection to you, that you've never met, and they're not invested in any way. You want to reach out to people that care about you or the type of thing that you're making.
Correct, because I had planned not to originally even use Kickstarter. I had already invested in the materials. I'd brought them to New York. And I set my goal on Kickstarter just to fund the sewing because I had already paid for the materials. I did not. I shot it all myself, but it took a really long time. You shoot it, and then you start editing, and it takes like 2 weeks, and then you spend another 3 weeks messing with it, right? So it took me 5 weeks, ultimately.
Making the video was the worst part. I'm just saying.
I can just add to that too. I know that some of the campaigns that I've funded have been in many ways the most naive ones. They haven't been the slickest ones because there's something very human and something very connecting about it. So it's not that they've had these super professional slick videos. It's them being a bit nerdy and a bit cute and a bit awkward that actually allowed me to connect with them and want to fund them.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not your style to be like super crazy, really fancy videos, then you shouldn't do it. Again, yeah, some of the really most compelling videos are people just in front of their video, and just kind of awkwardly mumbling about what they're doing. As long as you really kind of show who you are, why you care about it, what you're doing, then, But I mean, if you want to hire a person to do your video, that's fine too. People do that. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to have your final product, just ready to ship out. But Kickstarter isn't really the place for you to start from zero either. If it's not, if you should have a prototype maybe. I mean, I assume you're talking about fashion projects. But either kind of a prototype or show a lot of your previous work. So and sketches. So if you're doing a new line of dresses and you don't have it done yet, you can say this is the work I've done before and show a lot of images and video and everything, and so people get a good sense of what they're going to be backing for.
Yes. I didn't. Well, I pointed out in New York. I pointed out in my video by mentioning that all my fabric had already been brought to New York, and I mentioned our legendary garment district. So, but I think people back the product for its core utilitarian aspect or its core piece of beauty or whatever. They latch onto one real part of your project. There were people who were very excited about me being made in the USA, but it was not the core thing that drove my sales. There are other companies on Kickstarter, most notably Flint and Tender, who you may have seen have done underwear, and then they recently did a 10-year hoodie, and they're, everything that they make is made in the U.S., and that's really kind of their core mission. Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's not what I would like to do. Yeah. I mean, I'd like to stay being a small company that sells web only, and the fact that I'm not selling through retailers mean I can keep more of the margin, and then I'd like to use that margin to continue to produce in the U.S. And I should mention the inside of my pockets are printed. Like one pocket has an image of city of New York, and the other pocket has a mountain. And there's a line in there that said they're made on the 39th Street in the garment district where my grandfather worked as a garment cutter. So if I go to China, like I'm screwed, right?
Stefan, Heather, Amy, and Nicole. It was really wonderful. Thank you so much for all your expertise and insight. And thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.